VR gaming. People think it's the future. Sony obviously did. They're coming out with the PSVR 2. They project the sales to be around the 2 million units sold mark. In actuality, in the last article I checked, it was about 270,000. Now, where's the disconnect? What's going on? Is it Sony's fault? Or is VR gaming as a whole being stagnant? We all know that there's a demand issue, but could Sony sell more? Let's take a dive in and find out. Virtual reality headsets have come a long way since the 1960s. Ivan Sutherland's Sword of Damocles. Even though for its time, and you look back on the videos, it looks amazing. Technology now, with the modern headsets, have been able to provide us with a super crazy, immersive, virtual world. I mean, go play Flight Simulator in VR and you're gonna be blown away. These emotional triggers or experiences are one of the big things that drive people to go to VR. Just look at that plank walk experience and look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious. People are thinking they're gonna fall down a skyscraper in the middle of their living room and they're freaking out. TVs are getting broken, all types of crazy stuff. This is the experience that VR now has the capability of delivering to us in our own home. Now, the data shows that the VR headsets are bound to keep increasing with sales and revenue. And actually, the market size is projected to reach $6.3 billion by the year 2027, right? And this is due to a lot of people investing into the metaverse. Facebook went all in. Zuckerberg is all in on VR, right? He was so happy to demonstrate that in the Oculus Quest 2, you can have legs now, which is kind of funny because people joked about it. But the way that Quest 2 is set up, where it doesn't have cameras around the room, this is actually kind of a major thing. But it seems corny. I'm a gamer. Probably most people here watching this channel are gamers, but VR has other purposes as well, such as healthcare training, military training, and educational purposes, which are actually a major part of VR. And you see companies like HTC really doubling down on this, making headsets lighter. They're kind of making these sunglass versions, kind of pseudo augment reality, which actually may have a bigger future than VR, in my own opinion. But VR space is kind of fragmented between education and gaming. The beautiful thing about VR right now is that though there is fragmentation between education, training, and gaming, those lines are slowly getting blurred. Take, for example, I was looking at a video of a open heart surgery training in VR, and you know what? I wouldn't mind playing that. I want to be Frankenstein, basically. I want to do all types of craziness with the human body, but in virtual reality, not real life. I don't understand that. It all looks all just like mush to me. The vice versa is true as well, where you're seeing experiences that are educational being displayed almost like games, but more of an experience, which VR really excels at. So you had experiences like jumping out of an airplane during World War II, the controversial 9/11 simulator, which I don't want. It's hard pass on that one. I don't want to experience that. And they have holistic practices such as yoga and meditation, exercise. With the immersion, the accessibility to meet other people, things such as VR chat and Meta Horizons during the human malware incident, VR saw a rise, and no other headset saw a rise, such as the Meta Quest 2, which was pretty amazing for its time because it had native hardware versus hooking up to a PC or in a PlayStation headset version, hooking up to your PlayStation and playing with it. Now, this would be a major factor in things to come, and it might just be one of the major factors for why Sony PSVR 2 isn't selling. What's up with PSVR 2, man? This is what we came to talk about. Why is it not selling like PSVR 1? Little known fact, PSVR 1, before the Oculus Quest 2 came out, was actually the most popular headset for anybody to use. From October 2016 to January 2020, sold about 5 million units. Like, that's a lot. I don't even know anybody with one. But these are the numbers. One potential issue I personally think is that the PSVR 1 came out a lot later in the PS4's lifespan versus the PSVR 2, which is coming out this year. Though the PS5 has been out for about 2 years now, it's been one of the hardest consoles ever to find. Like, only recently have we been able to see them like in normal department stores such as Target and Walmart, which makes the number of actual customers being able to buy these things probably a lot less than you would normally have. Okay, here's a major reason why the PSVR 2, in my opinion, is not selling well. Ding dong, Flashpoint, it's not a native system. Meta Quest 2 is a native system that makes it easier for everyday people to play VR games, versus the Sony PSVR 2, which was mentioned before, that you have to have a PlayStation and the VR set, which makes the cost of entry so much higher. We're looking at Meta Quest 2, you could pick up used about, I don't know, I saw one about $175 on Facebook Marketplace, versus the PSVR 2, which probably are not a lot are used. And you're looking at $500 for that, and $500 for a PlayStation 5, which is about like an $800 difference. VR not being actually proven and tested in the marketplace of like gaming, that's a hard sell unless you're absolutely confident about the PSVR 2. Another major reason why Sony kind of handicapped themselves is that there's no room for growth with the PSVR 2. Unlike other headsets where you can hook it up to your PC, and that includes the Meta Quest, where it's actually a native system, but through use of 3.0 USB-C and AirLink, you can have a PC VR headset. The Sony PSVR has to be played with a PlayStation, so the longevity of the headsets aren't going to be there. I mean, yes, there's going to be a PS5, let's say 6 years from now, but is the PS5 going to be comparable to a PC 6 years from now? The answer is remarkably no. It's not even going to be close. And they're going to be looking to make a new system by that time, which ultimately makes you feel like you made a bad investment. As said before, virtual reality just isn't for gaming. And that's what most VR companies are actually banking on. A lot of companies are making headsets exclusively for training and companies to do business with, versus the PSVR 2, which is exclusively for gaming. And that is missing out on a major factor of VR growth, right? Like, the training part has always carried VR. Gaming hasn't. The 60s, when it came out, they had rudimentary games, but what carried it from the 60s to the 80s was its training capabilities. And yes, in the 80s, they had a Virtual Boy and a Sega VR. But from the 80s to like the 2000s, training simulators carried it still. And they still kind of do. Like, there are some insane headsets out that are worth thousands of dollars that are exclusively used for like flight simulations. VR headsets are taking a huge chunk of that. You can look at Oculus, and they came out with their new headset, and it doesn't look like a gaming headset at all. It has that sunglass feel, and these are used for businesses. Is it all doom and gloom for Sony PSVR 2? If you're asking me, I'm gonna say yes. There is talks of price cuts, which will help sales, but due to all these factors I listed above, the market's probably just not gonna be there. And for VR gaming as a whole, I don't see the market really growing too much until we get total immersion. See, the issue with VR right now that it's not mainstream is that due to renditions of VR in popular media, such as Tron, Star Trek, Sword Art Online, the VR we have now is not really the VR people want. We put a VR set on now, yes, it is truly immersive, and you do feel like you're out of this realm and in something else, but we are still bound by the laws of the earth. And when we see things like The Matrix or Log Horizon, these experiences aren't, right? And this is ultimate where we want to be. Granted, it's going to be a long time. Till then, VR is just going to have to incrementally get better, provide new innovative features for people to want to switch over to a whole different style of gaming. This is totally different from console gaming or PC gaming. Being a VR player is almost a commitment. You have to dedicate space. You have to be cautious of things in your way. It's a whole different ecosystem, and it's a different community. You don't feel like you are in the mainstream gaming community because you're not playing the same games that they are. Yes, there is Resident Evil 4 and San Andreas, but you're not playing that new Madden or that new Elden Ring game. It's just not going to work in VR. Elder Scrolls is there, and some people love it. I played it. It's a little too much, right? I don't feel like I'm having that experience. Ports are hard for VR. Now, the saving grace for VR can be a reduction in price with more innovation. I truly believe if we're not going to innovate, price drops have to be made. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be like $25 to have a VR headset, but maybe it could be an attach on or add on similar to like a high-end controller where you're getting something that's really good for like $250 and the average one is about like $100. That would make VR a lot more accessible to people. But until that time comes, I don't see VR being very strong in the gaming community that most people think it can be. And the numbers are projected. I don't really predict they will come true. Tech seems to be overvalued at the moment for the most part. Real quick, I wanted to come back, and it's early in the morning. I was recording late at night, but I wanted to come back and actually give some cases for the PSVR 2 possibly becoming a success. Even though I don't think it'll be a success Sony was thinking it was be, but it still has a chance to maybe make it. I'm not completely hopeful about this, but there is a possibility. And here are two reasons why. The PSVR 2 is actually outpacing the PSVR 1 for sales during its lifespan of existing. To me, the VR landscape has changed so much that it's kind of hard to compare it. Honestly, if Oculus or Steam Valve Index wasn't around, I would say it did have a good chance to pick up Steam and maybe sell those numbers that were projected. But since these other systems are out there and supply for VR is a much higher than the demand for it, I don't see PSVR 2 really having a good shot at meeting its quota and its numbers. If you're thinking about getting a PSVR 2 and you're a Sony fan, by all means, I don't want this video to divert you from getting a VR headset. I enjoy VR. A lot of people enjoy VR, even though it is a niche community. And a lot of the apps and games that are on like one platform or on another, there's a ton of cross-pollination, and you're gonna get a pretty good experience with the PSVR 2. Are you gonna get a lasting quality, top-of-the-line experience? Probably not, but it's gonna be serviceable 100%. The Quest 2 natively, the graphics are N64 like some people might say. I think it's probably around like PS3. mean, that thing's the highest selling VR system to this date. So that said, we do live in a free market and choose what you like to. I don't think that anybody in the VR community is going to ostracize you for having a PlayStation VR, and no one's going to ostracize you for not having one. VR actually is pretty inclusive. They kind of know that it's it's not as popular as say like a console gaming system, so any growth with it is going to be really accepted, and you being a part of that community is only adding to that growth, which most users like to see because that means better quality games, better quality experiences overall. My last case for the PSVR 2 is that it's made by Sony, so it's going to have that money being pushed behind it in marketing, especially with this upcoming price cut that's predicted to happen. It is possible that they somehow catch a wave in popularity, which would lead to more unit sales. I don't really see that happening, but anything is possible. It might be a game out there where it blows people's minds away and it's exclusive for the PSVR 2. And for some people, that might be enough to make that leap, especially people who already own a PS5. Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. Like and sub if you're into it. Maybe check out some other videos. If not, thank you for watching until the end.